I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about it being a neighborhood in the UK? The ghost of the alley, 15 years ago, the fights Stoney had to endure in prison were brutal, but the gang wars he waged as a young leader in his neighborhood were primal, driven by territorial hunger and the volatile pride of the streets. 15 years ago, Tony's gang, the Northside Crew, was locked in a bitter, bloody turf war with the East End Vipers over control of the 4th Street corridor, a key choke point for distribution. The atmosphere wasn't just tough. It was raw and unforgiving. Their weapons weren't fancy. They were tools of desperation, baseball bats wrapped in electrical tape, makeshift shivs, and rusty pipes. Guns were rare and reserved for the most serious conflicts, a necessary deterrent, but the real test of a man was in close quarters. One night, the conflict came to a head. Tony and 5 of his trusted lieutenants were ambushed in a cramped, oil-stained alley behind a closed-down bodega. The Vipers, led by a ruthless enforcer named Malice, outnumbered them almost 2-1. The air instantly filled with the sickening sounds of impact, bone against metal, and ragged shouts turning into gasps. Tony fought with the savage, calculating ferocity that would later save him in prison. He wasn't the biggest, but he was a technician of street violence. A viper swung a crowbar at Tony's head. Tony ducked under the whistling steel, drove his shoulder into the man's gut, and then used the momentum to slam the man's face against the brick wall. The fight devolved into a chaotic, close-quarters slugfest. Tony saw his right-hand man, Rico, go down, clutching a gushing wound on his leg. The sight of his friend bleeding out fueled Tony's rage. He grabbed a broken bottle and dove back into the fray, his eyes cold. He didn't use the bottle to stab. He used it to control the space, forcing opponents back with the threat of its jagged edge, creating an opening. He locked eyes with Malice. The 2 leaders circled, the rest of the brawl momentarily pausing to watch. Malice rushed, a feral snarl on his face, swinging a thick chain. Tony let the chain snap wide, stepped into the space, and delivered a devastating flurry of blows learned from hours watching boxing on a beat-up TV. A sharp left to the ribs, a right cross that broke Malice's nose with a sickening crunch, and a final brutal knee to the sternum that dropped the Viper leader to his knees, choking on his own blood. The moment Malice fell, the fight drained out of the Vipers. They didn't retreat. They scattered, leaving their wounded behind. Tony and his crew stood over the fallen, their bodies shaking from the adrenaline dump, every inch covered in someone else's grime and blood. They had won the alley, but the victory tasted like ash. They hauled Rico out, knowing the cost of the territory was always measured in flesh and freedom. That night was a visceral lesson for Tony. Respect on the street was earned through deals or diplomacy. It was carved out of pure, unadulterated force. This memory, the raw, animalistic need to survive and protect his own, is the wellspring of his trauma, a constant reminder of the beast he once had to be. Would you like to explore how this violence from the past informs Tony's current conflict with D-Rock, or maybe focus on the immediate aftermath of this particular gang fight?